Hey, I'm Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. A Mashpee, Massachusetts man has been charged and arrested with stealing up to $32,000 in rental deposits for an East Boston apartment. Let's cut to Fox 25 News with the story.
Well, there are several victims in this case, and they all thought they'd be renting an apartment here in East Boston. But according to these court documents, each of them lost thousands of dollars to this man. Timothy Andreev refused to answer any questions after leaving East Boston District Court Thursday. He even ran away from our cameras. Boston police say he faces several charges for an elaborate rental scheme after stealing about $32,000 from people just within the last month. Court documents list his social media pages, like his Facebook, which he used to message people about rental properties. In most cases, prosecutors say Andreev showed people an apartment on the second floor of this building on Gove Street in East Boston. He gave tours to several people, and after collecting their rental deposit, he blocked them, and they never heard from him again. Court documents show a couple of the victims paid Andreev more than $5,000 in a deposit, which included first and last month's rent.
Never a good look when you're running down an alley from the television cameras. Never a good look. Of course, it is America. You're innocent until proven guilty. This is just an allegation. But boy, do I feel bad for these people. That's a significant chunk of money to lose. Ouch. Oh, that's painful. So my first question, which they did cover later in this report, is was this guy licensed? So let's just start with that. If you want to do whatever you can to make sure that you don't get ripped off in the real estate business, you might want to first check if they're licensed. I'm going to drop a link in the description where you can check to see if someone's licensed here in Massachusetts. Let me show you how that works. Okay, so following the link in the description, we're just going to put in this gentleman's name and hit search. And there we go. We found his record, and that was easy to find, right? There's his license number. His license expired on February 24th, 2023. And we can also see that he's been licensed since April of 2010. So he's been licensed for a significant amount of time, 13 years. But for whatever reason, he let it expire this past winter. You can also do that with any real estate agency as well. Check to see if they're licensed. You can also, in that same report, see if there's any pending disciplining or prior discipline. It's posted at the same place. So, what are my additional advice so not to get scammed? Well, number one, if you're making an application, you want to make sure it's a written application. And when you make the deposit check, the safest thing to do is to make it out to the real estate agency that is listing the apartment. That way they have a legal obligation to take your deposit check and put it in their escrow account, which is a separate bank account run by the agency. And if the agency screws this up, they're at risk of losing their agency license. So the chance, is smaller, not zero, but smaller, that things can go bad. So if you apply to an apartment, you make out the check to the agency that listed the apartment rather than an individual's name. I think that's a really important safeguard. In the memo field, write what the check is for. Put the street address and also put, first month's rent, deposit, whatever it happens to be for, key fee, whatever it's for. Every check that you write to a potential landlord and or real estate company, describe in the memo field what it's for. This cuts down on fraud, but also makes everyone perfectly clear about what the check is. So if somebody has to look at this and audit it, 6-7 months from now or 3 days from now, whenever they have to audit it, they know what the check was intended for. Now, next, if you give cash, which I would not recommend, but I have taken cash in the past, if you give cash, make sure you immediately get a written receipt. The person who receives your cash should volunteer the receipt, and they should make it, just like the check, perfectly clear what that receipt is for. Perfect. Like I just bought a car recently. I offered a deposit on the car. It was $200, I think. And immediately they grabbed their receipt book. I didn't even have to ask for it. Immediately they grabbed their receipt book and started to write me a receipt. which I felt very comfortable about because, you know, I didn't even have to add, they were volunteering the receipt. So if you give cash, get a receipt. If you take cash, give a receipt. Additionally, if you feel mildly uncomfortable at all, you could ask to speak to their broker. And once you have their broker's name and the agency that they work for, you can look those things up in the database as well, right? There's a way to kind of cross-reference these things. Not that there's any like fail-safe way to make sure that you don't get scammed, but there's a number of things that you can do as a best practice. And lastly, of course, you've heard other people say this before, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So be careful out there. Thanks for watching. I'm Jack Gately from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. We'll see you next time.